and welcome to the Downtown Cary Show, the podcast where we slow down just long enough to meet the people shaping our growing downtown. I'm your host and president of the Heart of Cary Association, Joe Woolworth, and today we are going deep. We are going into the hidden history of our beloved town. That's right, Cary has secrets, real ones. Civil War drama, lost treasure, like the plot of Goonies. We're the actual gourd capital of North Carolina, and I'm not even kidding. And here to spill the historical tea is someone who knows every nook and cranny and cobblestone of this town. She's a globally recognized placemaking expert. She's known as the City Doctor. She's also Cary's history ambassador, the vice chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, has a production studio, and written a brand new book called The Hidden History of Cary. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Katherine Loflin. I'm here with Dr. Katherine Loflin. Thanks for coming.
I am so thrilled to be here.
You are our first guest. This is so exciting.
It is.
We thought, let's talk about downtown Cary and what's going on. And you've attended many of our Heart of Cary events, and we're grateful for that. And in chatting with you, some of the board members were like, who should we have on first? And your name came up.
Oh, wow.
And so that's where we are.
That's awesome.
And so I got so much to talk to you about. Yeah. There's so much going on. The first thing that I think is pretty cool from your website is you're known as the City Doctor. And I like the idea of, as a pioneer in placemaking and place science, you explore how people emotionally connect with the cities they live in. This is kind of like your background. This is, you give talks, TED Talks, and you've written a book about it.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about that, and maybe just frame it up in the context of Cary.
Yes. So, I have, for the past almost 20 years now, I have really helped globally a lot of cities understand what makes people fall in love with where they live.
Yeah.
And why it matters for local economic development as well as personal resident well-being, all based off some research that I did called Soul of the Community with the Knight Foundation and the Gallup organization, where we studied 26 communities over 3 years, and we found remarkable consistency across places about what makes people love where they live. And it was 2008 where the economies were falling out of places. So it was this new way of looking at things, and it really, because it had that economic development component, it really launched me into this whole sphere of community attachment. And I had always said that I would never work where I lived, because when you work where you live, you're never not working. And so I just was quietly doing the City Doctor stuff in Cary. I'm never talking to Cary about never worked in North Carolina, just stayed on airplanes all the time. And then COVID hit, and it really changed my ability to
I'm here now.
do that. Yeah. So that's what really started me interested in the local history stuff. And then along the way, I found this incredible connection between telling local history in a way that engages people and in 2 hours changing their entire perception of a place. Yeah. Which was what I was doing to begin with. So it became full circle anyway.
Yeah, I thought that was a super powerful concept, that shared stories are kind of the secret sauce for fostering a stronger community.
Yeah, I have helped communities and cities build, multi-million-dollar downtown projects that were designed to bring people to downtown, to attach them to the place. And they've been wonderfully successful, no doubt. I've done much smaller budget that were also successful. I have never seen anything change people's love of a place quicker than a well-done 2-hour or less production of the story of that place.
So interesting. And you talk about like the Heart of Cary, who's, putting on this show.
Yeah.
And they started in 1997 and started with the idea of like, how do we get people downtown?
Right.
And then the park got completed.
Right.
I get to produce other podcasts, and on one of those for a local magazine, Joy Ennis was on talking about the park. Yeah. And the amount of visitors, and this was a couple months back now, was already over 500,000 since the beginning of the year.
That's right.
And I don't know if that's unique or whatever, but that's a lot of people visiting downtown.
It's a lot of people for Cary. And, the history of Cary is so interesting to me, but it has always been about, can we be more than people thought we could be?
Yeah.
That's been the narrative of Cary from the beginning, and people doubting that Cary could ever be more than it ever was, But now I think, could we live up to that potential that we saw in ourselves? And I think a lot of people are saying, we're coming into our own now at Cary.
Yeah. You've got tours, theatrical productions. How does stuff like that help people connect with Cary's history?
We are so fortunate in Cary. I, unfortunately, for other places, tell them that I would put our history as a place up against any other place.
And I bet that most people who live here know very little about it.
Very little. And my personal mission has been to talk about the things that happened in Cary before IBM showed up, because everybody thinks nothing happened here before IBM showed up.
Yeah.
And it could not be further from the truth. We know where Sherman got off the train during the Civil War. We know that Town Hall was owned by Frank Page. That was his land, and it was a Union encampment during the Civil War. We know about the history of Cary Arts Center as Cary High School. And so I can take people to the place that it happened that they don't know was. And you should see, you know how I get their faces when we stand on Town Hall grass. And they're like, oh, great. Here comes a municipal lecture about Town Hall. And I'm like, you're standing on a Union encampment. It changes them. You can't beat it. It makes an impression in the hard wiring of our brain.
So for people that don't know, unpack what some of those are. I know you got ghost tours, you got different things.
Yeah.
What have you done in the past? What do you got coming up? And where can people connect with these things?
Okay. So we have done a lot of different things. We have done the History That Haunts Cary, which is a combination of reenacting events and then live paranormal investigations.
Right.
Which is super cool.
I love that it's not a lecture, but you actually get actors involved.
Sure. And
and the mayor's been involved.
The mayor is, I was just going to say, I love.
And he gets dressed up.
He does. And sometimes, he's like, I think I could wear this to town council tonight. And I'm like, I don't know about that. But what's cool about the casting is everybody who's in my cast, I can help you act. Mm-hmm. What's cool is if I can say the mayor is playing the founder.
Sure.
Or if this person in this cast is actually a descendant of the person she's playing. Everything to me is a moment to trip people's trigger about Cary. So I don't need to have, Shakespeare in the Park and blah, blah, blah. What I need are people who are so invested in telling this story, either because it was their ancestor, they're the mayor of the town, or they've been here since they were born, or they're new here and they discovered this story and they want to be a part of it. We do paranormal investigations. We do historical reenactments. When the Whistle Blows is probably the most popular fall tour I have done, which just tells the haunting stories of what happened along our railroad. We started as a railroad town. And we reenact some events in the places that it happened. So I'm going to bring that back this year by popular demand. We might throw in a little live paranormal investigation along with it. We also do historical fiction murder mysteries at the Matthews House.
Okay.
So we have created this series now, and now I'm locked in. It's called Prohibition Can Be Murder because Cary was founded as a dry town.
Right.
So
I heard that.
Yeah.
And now we're nothing but breweries.
And people are like, why would Cary be haunted? Because our founder said we shouldn't have alcohol for 1,000 years. And look at what's happened.
His name's Fenton?
No, it was Page, Allison Francis Page. But we were named after Samuel Fenton Cary.
Samuel Fenton Cary, okay.
A Yankee, no less. So that brings that whole containment area thing full circle, too. Anyway,
So you were mentioning your story earlier. You weren't involved a lot locally here. COVID happens. Now you're here. You're involved now. You have a role with the town of Cary, right?
I am. And I almost to the exclusion of, other clients. I always believe you go where there's momentum. And if you're having to sort of shove yourself down people's throat, then go where you have momentum. And things have really been going well with Cary and working more officially with them now as the town ambassador for history and all of that. It's really, they've been incredible supports to me.
Yeah.
But I think the history has sort of led us both to work more together. But I still go to Florida and do keynotes do that stuff too. But Cary's number one.
So when you're unpacking and you find these stories and you're uncovering them as a playwright, an actor, a producer, and you got your production company, how do you decide whether this history, this story lends itself better to a tour, a play, or a book? Because I want to talk about your book.
Yes. Okay. What an excellent question. What I find, because I also teach a class in Cary history as well. And what I find is it is my job to translate the most important and surprising stories about Cary to all those formats. Because it can't be that on the tour you hear a story that you won't see any other way. And I think our history is so intense in some ways that you need to hear it. Then you need to see it.
Yeah.
Then you need to see the newspaper articles, that talks about that time. And that's when the class comes in. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So I try to get them all to work together. I usually test out history on the tours.
Okay.
And the ones that make people go, I'm like, okay, note to self, write that up and put that in a tour.
Yeah.
And then go from there.
Speaking of books, you got your new book coming out August 26th.
Yeah.
The Hidden History of Cary. Here it is. And I'm sure you'll be able to pick it up at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
It's going to be everywhere because it's produced by the History Press. And they're the guys who, sometimes you see them in the
grocery
store and the drugstores and all of that. We're going to have them at the Visitor Center. I hope to get it in the downtown Cary Park in their little market. But they're going to be everywhere. You can get them from the publisher, but they will be everywhere.
So what's one of your favorite stories in here?
That's tough. I will say that I start this book during the dinosaur age of our land.
Oh, okay.
I do. Before, like Native American, we have an incredible hidden history between Native Americans and African Americans in this town that we don't talk about. But to think about water buffalo roaming our land, and one of the most surprising things and things I've held on to from the book that I haven't talked about anywhere was the fact that it is believed the treasure man, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy, who hides actual historic treasures, one in every state, and then he puts on a website this very weird way you can find them. It is truly believed that the North Carolina treasure is in Cary. And it's never been found. And so somebody anonymously sent me a map that overlaid his map of the area by a drafting company. I mean, they did it very seriously, and they think it's in Cary. I don't want to...
What kind of treasure are we talking about here?
We're talking gold bullion, like pirate treasure. This man is very wealthy. And so he puts his historical treasures in a treasure box, literally.
So is this like a scavenger hunt? Like he left clues kind of a thing?
He left a story and a map.
Okay.
And so everything is online, and then you can connect current maps with the story to say, well, is that connected to this? And the story he created for North Carolina was Theodosia's treasure. So Theodosia was Aaron Burr's daughter.
Right.
Who died aboard a ship as she was going to see her father up north, and came past the North Carolina coast, and it was either taken by pirates or sunk or something. And she was carrying her whole treasure. I mean, her jewels and all of that.
Yeah, this sounds like real life Goonies.
Exactly. And his thing is, you find it, you keep it. And so when you talk to other people in other states that have found his treasure, they're just like, we're good for the rest of our lives and our children's lives and everything else. So
that's amazing.
Talk about that. We think it's here.
What do you think people would be most surprised to hear about in your book?
The incredible African-American history we have in Cary. And the way that we had more never enslaved African-Americans living here before and during the Civil War, who ended up intermarrying with the remaining Tuscarora to create these land baron empires in Cary that after the Civil War they used to help recently freed slaves who were coming to the area learn how to survive on their own. And the way that they talk about land ownership and ownership as the key to getting out of poverty if you think about it, is still a best practice for poverty reduction today. It was people of Cary, these very interesting families who came together and made the difference. There's a history in Cary of, although we didn't always get it right, there's no doubt about it, but the African-American Tuscaroran ancestry with the whites in Cary have always had a unique kind of situation that did not let us fall prey to what a lot of other southern towns had to deal with.
Wow.
And I think, having Sherman come through here and making the point on town council land, town hall land. Sherman found out on his way to Bennett Place to negotiate the surrender of this area of the war that Lincoln had been assassinated. He stopped off in Cary, wasn't Cary yet, during the occupation to talk to General Blair, who was occupying in Cary, was in charge, and said, listen, I'm getting ready to negotiate the end of this thing. And if the guys found out about this, it's going to start all over again. We have to hide this information from our troops. So Cary was the only place Sherman ever betrayed, if you will, his own troops by specifically not telling them about Lincoln's assassination and that it was on the way here that he learned it on his way to this area and stopped here to change the course. I think that's surprising history.
Yeah, that's pretty surprising and interesting. And I'm sure there's a ton of cool, interesting stuff. You should go check this out when it comes out, if it's not already out. I'm curious from your perspective. I feel like a lot of people, and I'm thinking, I guess I'm more generalizing with young people, tend to put history in a category of something that you study.
Yeah.
But what do you think is the role of history when it comes to the town, the decisions we're making now, how we're rapidly growing now? What do we gain by looking through the prism of history, and what do we lose by not knowing our history?
Such a great question. So one of the things that I think that we lose out on when we don't talk about the Cary history as part of our brand identity is that it speaks to the legacy we have in innovation. We were the first public high school in North Carolina. What that took, we had a principal who founded the first parent-teacher association in the country here. So we have this tradition of innovating, entrepreneurship. Our founder was a huge entrepreneur. He was prohibitionist, but he was a huge entrepreneur. So my point being is that we can tap and look to our history to understand better how we got to be the way we are now.
Right.
The racial issues that we worked hard to get better at. And now we have really, and people don't know this, such a diverse population here in Cary. People don't understand that. So I think what we lose out on is we act like this just started.
Yeah.
We just started being great. We just started these things.
Right. Now it's a whole new thing.
Yeah, it's a new thing.
How do we unpack it?
It is a tradition of legacy of our town. And when we don't talk about it, we lose out on the opportunity to market that component. So for young people, what I've discovered, and they come in droves, I have everybody. They love the idea of the living history.
Right.
They love the idea that you can still look at the first public high school in North Carolina. And they like telling people.
Right.
Or sitting at the bar at Cotton House and say, hey, did you know that this was a boarding house for the students because Cary High started as a boarding school? You don't have to go to a museum. You don't have to go to some boring lecture. You can go get a drink. And I guarantee you where you're having a drink has a history that you would not wait to tell the next people you're sitting with the next time you're there, if you knew it.
Right.
So my job is to not make you come to a lecture and not make you go to the museum. I will go to where you are and show you the Cary you never knew.
That's very cool. I think this is correct. Maybe you know more than I do, but I feel like Parks and Rec is kind of over our tourism department, although we don't officially have a tourism department.
Yeah.
If we had a tourism department and you could kind of future cast, what do you think are some interesting tourism things that we should be highlighting as a town? And how much longer do we call ourselves a town? That's
yeah,
byproduct.
well, yeah, I think out of our cold dead hands, is that going to ever not be the case?
I think I heard we're the second largest town, maybe
we are
now?
the second largest town.
We're keeping that town going in the country. Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand. Last I heard, we were at 180, and then somebody the other day told me, it was a town council person, I think, told me we were at 191, and I'm like, geez.
Well, you think about all the new kind of bigger developments that have gone in.
Yeah.
It's really got to make the number go up.
Absolutely. And not to go back onto this, but Frank Page really founded us that the downtown that we have now was all he wanted Cary to be. He bought that 300 acres that we call downtown now for $7 an acre. And he was like, this is it. And people are like, you're never going to fill up these 300 acres with people. Are you crazy? So it's just, the ironies are everywhere. Now we're growing this. So for tourism, I mean, what do you mean in terms of the stories or the ideas?
If you're just kind of spitballing and so with the creation of a new tourism wing of Cary,
you should do it.
What do you think would be like, oh, these would be the top 3 things I would start with? This.
I think Hidden History of Cary is incredibly powerful. It brings in a lot of things. My classes, believe it or not, my classes are always completely sold out. I've done them, and they come back session after set, like 2 or 3 times they're taking my course, because you learn so much. And it's an easy thing to do if you do it well, to introduce people to Cary. And then I think you do one like historical based murder mystery. So you pick one from each of my categories, one of my games, one of my history tours, and one of my reenactments.
Yeah.
And that will get you a lot. And then the class is for another demographic. Usually the older folks like the class.
Yeah.
So you do something that everybody will see themselves in.
Do you think, I just like to, I don't know, this idea was kicking around in my head. We approved the ADUs, I forget what that stands for. Help me out. The dwelling unit.
Yeah.
Additional dwelling unit.
Yeah.
Which means you have permission now to build like a mother-in-law suite with a lot of rules around it. Right. But they passed it. And I think some of the things I heard, some of the feedback I heard from people was like, oh, what if it's a lot of Airbnbs? And I was thinking, well, that's great news if you're a business owner, or, as we're talking about possible tourism, and the park's here now. And so there's all that kind of stuff going on. If I was just dreaming, I would hope for like motorcycle tourism. I like to ride. Yeah. And somebody just needs to name a bunch of routes.
Sure.
And we'll just get a bunch of motorcyclists coming through town.
And I think that's part of what you do need to do. You need to find, because what I discovered is generalized tours are great, but specialized tours are important.
Yeah.
And so I started doing History of Hooch to talk about our complicated legacy with alcohol. And we actually stop in since I've started the production company, I have infused, and I keep track of this, directly into our businesses, our downtown businesses, nearly $40,000.
Wow.
And it's because I include them. I don't walk around their buildings. I go in their buildings and bring them on as partners in everything I do.
Yeah.
Because we rise together, and that's how they keep wanting to see me come back. But the History of Hooch was a popular tour because we would do drink stops in these places, and we had gunfights and moonshine and all this craziness while we were trying to be prohibitionists. So you got to generalize and then be specific too.
I wonder if we're ever going to get to the place where we can have distilleries that can be here that's not beer.
Yeah, I missed out.
But coming from prohibition, that's a big jump.
It is a big jump, but we're nearly there. I think about Frank seeing us walk through the town of Cary carrying alcohol.
Right.
He said no alcohol here or pass through here or within 2 miles of us.
Well, we really stuck to that.
Yeah.
Now we got the open carry.
Exactly. I just think he would be like, we need to talk, I don't know why I hear his voice in my head. But, we have one Airbnb in downtown that was the home of a physician at one point, and his office is now the Airbnb. And he has this really special history where at the time he was forced to create 2 entrances to his office because it was during the time of segregation. And he thought that was crap.
Yeah.
He thought it was such crap. But they wouldn't give him his certificate of occupancy without it. So what he did was he built the second door to his office. And then they came back and they're like, okay, here you go. But he had them feeding into the same waiting room. That seems like you didn't say anything about waiting rooms. So he built the 2 doors, but they went to the same place. And now that's an Airbnb. And I just wonder, I'm like, is there something in there that tells that history? Because that is so cool.
Right. Yeah, I think we lose so much when we don't write down or capture our oral history, or even just thanks for coming on and talking this stuff with us. And I think I'm excited to check out your book. I think we focus a lot because it's exciting on growth and the future and what's going in. And then, we get to talk about this is coming, that is coming. What if this happened? What if that happened? And as we're kind of wrapping up here, what's coming up in the future? What future projects do you got? And what's coming up and where can we hear about it?
Yes.
Get tickets to it?
Yes. You did ask me that. And I will say, when Frank Page built the Page Walker Hotel, everybody in town went, what is that monstrosity of a development that he is creating there? That place stood out like a sore thumb. So we also have a tradition of building in a way that scares the crap out of people.
Right.
Anyway, so the City Doctor Productions has its own Facebook group. And if you're part of the group, you get first access to tickets. We are doing a couple of things this fall. One, I can't even talk about yet because it's a gaming adventure at an old preserve that nobody knows about, Civil War era farm that we have in Cary. The other is the revisiting of When the Whistle Blows, which will be the haunting stories of the train and what happened there. And we'll talk about Sherman, and we'll talk about Frank Page, and we'll talk about some of the basis of ghost stories that we have in downtown. So those are the 2 things that are coming up. My class starts next month again. It's about half sold out already. So that's exciting.
And where can people find all this?
So if you go
on
to
the Facebook page,
the
or do you have a
City
website?
Doctor Productions, I put everything there, whether it's sponsored by the town or sponsored by my company, because not everything's sponsored by the town. Some of them are mine. But I make sure that is the clearinghouse. And then from there, you either go to Rec Track with the town, or you go onto my ticketing page. But you'll find everything through the City Doctor Productions.
Well, thanks so much for coming in and chatting with us. Thanks for being the first guest on the show.
I'm so excited for this, Joe. Yeah. You are the man to do this and bring us into this arena. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, well, thank you. So for more stories about people, passion, places, and things that make downtown Cary unique, we'll see you on the next episode. Hey, if you got a question or a topic or something you want to discuss or somebody you think would be good on the show, be sure to drop it in the comments or go to heartofcary.org.